This is your boy Gage. I'm here with Sin and with Jokes, and you are now tuned into another episode of
Spoiler Boys! Spoiler Boys!
Now listen, before we dig too deep into episode 5 of She-Hulk, as always, the question is, how do we grade this episode? Sin, let's just go in order across the screen. Where are you?
I'm back up to an 8.
You like this episode better than you liked the last episode.
Overall, yes.
Interesting. We're gonna dig into that a little bit. Jokes, where are you?
I'm actually at a 9 on this one. I enjoyed this episode. It was fun, like comedic parts and some small tidbits. But other than that, yeah, I actually really like this episode.
I think this is probably the weakest episode so far.
Really?
Yeah. I'm probably at a 7 overall, but I liked it. It might be an 8 by the end, which is like, again, it will put it on par with the rest of the episodes. But I think from episode to episode, I think so far this is the weakest one. But let's dig into this a little bit. Sin, you are back up to an 8.
Mm-hmm.
Last week's episode had you at a 7.
Mm-hmm.
And in discussing that, it seemed to be that part of what it was you didn't really like about the last episode that seemed to bring it down some for you was a combination of where the comedy landed and the lack of quote-unquote action. This episode...
It wasn't necessarily about the action. It wasn't necessarily about the action last week. It was more so just I wanted them to at least dig into like what was going on with like why did the Wrecking Crew like run up on her, since the Wrecking Crew is somebody in the Marvel universe, like just something leaning in that direction, some conversation about it, something, and it just really wasn't addressed besides the opening with the father.
So, but then what that means is that how you felt about last week's episode wasn't about last week's episode. It was about the episode before that, and you not getting closure to that, and you blaming last week's episode for you not getting that closure.
Yeah, I think I mentioned I was disappointed in it. Like it was partly disappointment, and some of the comedy stuff I just wasn't landing with me last episode.
It was more of the comedy. So what is it? You didn't get an explanation of the Wrecking Crew in this episode.
No,
so
but
why did
it didn't bother me? For some reason, it did not bother me in this episode. Like the comedy was just so on point for me that I was just like I was laughing the whole time, and it just was like just out of my mind at that point. Like,
the comedy had landed better for you in the last episode, it would have nullified the piece that you felt like was missing, because them not landing the comedy in the last episode for you allowed you to dwell on the fact that you didn't get that you now have, for lack of a better way of saying it, you I guess I could say you the Wrecking Crew for you right now is who's in witness protection. It's like what it is your witness protection. It was like
right. I guess you could put it that way. Like what's going on with them? Like they showed up, they got whooped, and that's it. But like who sent them after her? Stuff like that. Like those just questions I have.
Okay. Jokes, this is a 9 for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're up.
I'm up. Yeah.
From every other, this is the best episode of She-Hulk so far.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Kind of like what Sin said. I felt the comedy was actually spot on in this episode. I didn't think they overdid it with it. And I thought this was a good example of an episode that you don't need action to make the show move along. We've seen that a few times already during the show. But I thought between that and the comedy just kind of being, it didn't seem forced. Like the last episode, I kind of agree. I agree when I know where you're coming from, Sin, about some of the comedy just like falling flat on it. I still chuckled and laughed, but I thought this one was well placed. And of course, we got a few nuggets leading up to like Daredevil, some behind the scenes, making suits and all that type of stuff. But I think the comedy is what kind of did it for me on this one. I wasn't eager to see action go down. Like I wasn't expecting She-Hulk to just come out of nowhere and just to start fighting somebody or something like that. I thought they did a really good job at building on her a little bit more, you know, saying, hey, listen, you need to come out that suit. We need to get you some right clothes because you need to embrace the She-Hulkness now. And so, because that's what you are.
I could see that maybe last week's level of levity helped to establish better the current level of levity. Like the comedy in this episode feels more acceptable because last episode's comedy kind of set the bar for your expectations. Personally, I don't think the comedy was great in this episode. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't enough to elevate the joint to a 9 for sure for me. It was like, this is cool. I like where we're going, and y'all know I like the lawyer stuff. So like, you know, I'm all about seeing that happen and take place. I think there's definitely a lot that's happening to establish things in this, and to a certain extent, giving some credence to what Sin's complaints are about last episode and how it didn't tie into the episode before for him. So he didn't get the answers he wanted about the Wrecking Crew. This episode does directly tie into the last episode by literally bringing in all of the extra characters that she saw or dated in the last episode and kind of bringing that full circle in a way. It also did tie up the very end of the last episode where she served with the papers from Titania with essentially a cease and desist because of the She-Hulk name. This entire episode is about that.
Yeah.
Wherein 2 episodes ago, we end with an attack by the Wrecking Crew and them attempting to inject her with something, some needle, steal her blood, we assume, and they didn't. And in the following episode, basically doesn't even really address it again, like you said, Sin, other than the fact that her father, who is actually an ex-police officer in the comics, I mean, they haven't established that here in the show, but like in the comics, he was a police officer. So he would know, like you know what I mean? Like, sure, he's got a Hulk for a daughter now, but like, of course, for him, my daughter gets attacked. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna bulk up security. Now, literally, it was like he just walked in the house. Clearly, she ain't really thinking about her security so much, and I don't think that is anything that's reflective of the fact that she's now She-Hulk. Because again, we talked about in our last episode's discussion about how she don't even really realize that she's She-Hulk now. Like her being attacked is kind of like, oh yeah, I don't really have to be scared. I can
do this.
She-Hulk. This episode reestablishes that.
Yep. When the name gets taken from her, and she starts to,
no. Slim just walks into her house. Oh yeah, I need you to sign all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, you can't just walk into my house. And Slim, why is your door
unlocked? That was my first thought. I'm like, does he have a key? I'm like, what?
You're like, you can't just barge in here. Considering the kind of activity that She-Hulk was having in the last episode, you don't want people just barging in because it could be some things going on.
It could be popping.
So I can certainly see that difference in transition for Sin from one episode to the next and how he's back up to an 8, because as a person who we've established hates cliffhangers enough that he will wait until the very end of a season is done before he watches it, to have a cliffhanger happen at the end of an episode and then turn around and get essentially nothing about it, I can see that bringing it down. Jokes, I'm not quite sure about this being a 9 and going up an additional notch. So as we talk about this episode, I'm gonna really need you to help me understand why this is the best episode of She-Hulk so far, because that's what you just said. It's a 9. That's almost perfect. That's almost a masterpiece joint. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna have to have some discussion about how and why that is. So this episode really does dig into her having to deal with not liking being She-Hulk, not being accepting of what it is,
until the name gets
and
taken
kind of
from
coming
her.
to grips with the idea of being jealous about the fact that somebody else is using it. And I can sort of understand that, right? Like it feeling unfair that this person, regardless of who it is taking something that happened to me, regardless of whether I like it or not, taking something that happened to me and benefiting from it. And I'm not really benefiting from it. If anything, I'm suffering for it because I lost my job. I only have a job because of it, and I don't really want to be it. I can't wear regular clothes. I can't get dates. I have to be this person in order to go on dates. So all of the negative connotations and feelings about having had someone's blood spill into you, which is pretty nasty, regardless of who it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? For somebody else to be like, I know exactly what to do with this. I'm about to take this and run with it. It reminds me a bit of how Kate Bishop is telling Hawkeye, like, hey, we need to, like, we got to step you up. Like, we could really take your joint to the next level. Like, you know, we got to get you on Instagram. We got to, you know what I mean? Like, she's really, like, all about kind of putting that limelight, that, and it is a bit of a difference, I think, in what we might see with characters like Young Avengers versus the original Avengers in the MCU, right? That this is a younger group of people, and the things that they're into and the things that matter to them, things like likes and follows and all that stuff that has become so normal for them because it's what they've grown up with, is now a part of what it is. And She-Hulk, both inside of the MCU and outside in our real universe, has had to deal with the Twitter battles, the back and forth, the Instagram hate, the, you know, and so I think it's a very interesting direction to go with this show. You know, Jennifer is in the unfortunate position of having to have Mallory be her lawyer. Right, and she makes some very upfront statements like, at least you're not dumb enough to try to be your own lawyer, which of course was the first thing she said, like, I will fix it. My man was like, no you won't. No you won't.
You cannot do that, man.
You can't do this. But we can't have you running around and have us looking like we can't take care of our own business.
Exactly.
So you're super public, which makes this super public. She's super public. And I need us to be super public. That's why I appointed you to be the face of the company. You can't be getting sued for this. And listening to Mallory, like, literally look at Titania and be like, oh, this the joint that legally outmaneuvered this one? Here's the thing. I'm not positive. There's a little bit of back. I'm not positive that Jennifer Walters is a good lawyer. In the first episode, right, they really make it seem like she's really, really good at what she does. She's a really great lawyer. Good enough that even though she gets fired, he's like, you beat us.
Yeah, you had us.
Even though I managed to get that joint flipped, you beat us, and that's hard to do. I want you to work for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they really push it. She does a decent job of, like, in the moment, coming up with a great defense for Blonsky. But in this episode, she seems completely incompetent and dumb about her own stuff. And I can totally get making the mistake of not even thinking about trademarking the name She-Hulk. Like, that's not even really what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about, like, her being out-lawyered by Mallory, which in the comics, she is, like, a serious rival for her in terms of, like, within the firm, right? So I think it's cool that they're establishing that Mallory is really good at what she does, right? That she understands and is kind of a take no prisoners, we're gonna get this done kind of thing. Like, she has a reputation in the comics for being the lawyer who never loses. Like, she never loses.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. But in trying to establish that for her, I feel like they made Jennifer Walters, the lawyer, just seem really bumbling and like, she almost seems like dude they was defending in the last joint that Pug was helping, like, just kind of like bumbling, kind of like doesn't really know what to do. And, you know, again, there are these things that are happening to her that I can understand her being overwhelmed by, right? But her thought process and the way she looks at things, even though it means like, okay, in order to do this, I'm gonna have to really do something that's embarrassing. Like, I'm gonna have to, you know.
Right.
I don't think it would have been a bad thing for her to even be able to sit down with Mallory and come up with a great defense on her, like, to at least show it, to show them going, here's what I have.
Here's some ideas. And
this is how I'll establish, you know, whatever. Because even Mallory in the beginning being like, listen, if I'm gonna be your lawyer, that's exactly what this is. Like, I'm your lawyer, you gotta do what I say. We're not, you know what I mean? There's no back and forth, there's no whatever. And I get that, but again, Jennifer is also attempting to establish a certain level of like, no, I'm really good at what I do. And I feel like they took that away from her in this episode. And I think that's one of the things I don't like about this episode. I think that they unnecessarily belittled Jennifer Walters, the lawyer's abilities, in order to uplift Mallory's abilities. And I just feel like I didn't like that. However, I hate her wardrobe. And so I'm
Mallory's or Jennifer's?
Mallory's wardrobe is fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
exactly how they're acting like, yo, where does she shop? As a matter of fact, it's really difficult to understand how Jennifer and what's her name can be best friends. And like,
yeah,
it's two ends of the.
Because her wardrobe wasn't fire before she had to start wearing men's big and tall suits.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't. And that was just even worse.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Jump. They look like men's big and tall suits, but they be skirt suits. And so when she's in She-Hulk form, they look good on her. Like, they don't look like bad, but I just be like, where'd she get that big ass skirt from?
I was going to say, I was like, literally took it and just sewed that joke together.
Clearly, she's not capable of. Let's talk about Mallory for a minute. I want to get you guys' opinions on Mallory. Sin, just give me the overall, like, what you think about her, how you feel about the character and her in this episode.
I liked her more by the end of it. Like, she was being real hard on Jennifer and everything throughout it, and I completely get it. You know what I mean? Like, let's establish some boundaries here. I'm your lawyer, you're my client type of deal, and doing what she's got to do to win the match. Well, not say the match, but the case and everything. But them kind of having
a match. I mean, might as well.
Point. But them sitting down and, you know, having a drink afterwards and everything, and kind of bonding a little bit. I felt a little,
very little bit.
yeah, very little bit. But
just get in a little bit.
As a character, though, I liked her more rounded out. Like, by the end of the episode, like seeing that she has that other side to her, but she is a complete badass when it comes to being in office and everything. And like I said, take no prisoners type of character. So overall, I do like her as a character, kind of opposite of Jennifer. Going forward,
there is a part of me that appreciates, again, even though I don't necessarily like, again, how I feel like they maybe belittled Jennifer's ability in order to uplift her ability.
Yeah.
I do think they do a good job of, without ever actually saying it, sort of showing that even if Mallory does have some level of respect for Jennifer's ability, that she does look at her like, you're only here because exactly what Jennifer was concerned about, like in the first couple of, like, you're only here because you can turn into this giant green thing. Like, I straight up earned my spot here at this very prestigious law firm that is known for taking on the greatest cases and me not losing, and you're only here because you can do that, which isn't true. She's there because she beat them. And the only reason why she lost is because she turned into the giant green person. But Mallory maybe doesn't know that necessarily, right? And so I can see a certain level of resentment or a certain level of Mallory now feeling like, and maybe I'm taking a little extra with this, but not only feeling like she has to prove herself, but also has to do something as a black woman in this law firm.
You might be on
filled with white people and white men, right? That she has earned her place. And now she's, again, because Jennifer is actually in charge of the superhuman division. She is.
And also something, she might be looking at it like, you lost that case to us, and now you have a job here running that division. Like, that's not fair.
Exactly.
She may see it as not being fair. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It could absolutely be that's the position that would have been Mallory's if it hadn't been for the fact that she could. Now, that doesn't mean that if Jennifer had beaten them and hadn't turned into She-Hulk, that he wouldn't have turned around and offered her the position like, you beat us.
Anyway,
that's super tough to do. I am now putting this division together, and I want you to come over here and
run.
Right? Totally possible it could have worked that way. But the circumstances being what they are, it just puts another hurdle in front of somebody like Mallory, who you can kind of tell, to me, has the same kind of drive. Like, I'm really working for this. This is a thing I really want. I'm super good at what I do. And to an extent, the position you have is the position I earned. You know what I'm saying? And I do think that somehow they managed to land that here. Jokes, what are your thoughts about Mallory?
Kind of same place with Sin was that I really like how she can compartmentalize. So, you know, when I'm a lawyer, I'm this lawyer, I'm your lawyer. I don't, she wasn't friends with Jennifer in the first place anyway, but it's like she already had that wall up going into it. But seeing, like Sin said, afterwards, you know, that she does have that human self piece that's it's there, but it seems like it's buried under all of that layer of, I have to be better than everybody, I got something to prove. Like, it's just buried underneath all of that. And I feel like maybe Jennifer's going to kind of help to peel that away a little bit. Maybe now that they're having, like, I can't even say have a friend conversation, but I guess they have more of a mutual respect, I guess maybe is the way to say it by the end of it. Yeah. But I definitely think, I don't want to say maybe they belittled Jennifer. Like, I do think maybe because she was fighting for herself, you know, sometimes, you know, you don't see everything fully the way that you should. And you start to get tunnel vision a little bit. So I think maybe she had a hint of that, and that's why Mallory was able to really shine a little bit brighter than what Jennifer does. She may not necessarily, I think the reason why she looks now as not being the best lawyer is because she's kind of taken out of her element. So the superhero, super, or whatever you want to call it, I feel like it's a different venue. She's got to learn. She's got to figure things out. I mean, being a lawyer is being a lawyer. So some things don't change. But I think that side of it has had to make her learn a little bit more. But I think Mallory, just because of the way that she is, if she wins this case, like, hey, listen, I got She-Hulk's name. That's something she's gonna put on her resume. The fact that she won that, even though it's high profile because of who they are, but it's not necessarily a major life-altering case for, like, the world per se. But because she's winning She-Hulk, and like someplace down the road, maybe where maybe She-Hulk has to do something different, you know, she's gonna come forward and say, you know what, hey, I got her name retained, so she kept that, and then she has an extra favor to somehow pull out from Jennifer because of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a part of it, right? That is, you have to look at both of their jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the boss man is like, yo, we can't have this. Like, I put everything into the fact that you're here, this is your face, this is your name. We can't defend ourselves, then we're gonna look terrible. But that also means that if Mallory is your lawyer, if Mallory loses this case, she maybe don't have a job there, right? Like, how bad does she look? And now the pressure is on because I gotta defend you because you was too dumb. You let Titania, of all people, like legally outmaneuver you. One of the things that I like about this show is that they're not shy about specifically calling out the A story and the B story. That they allow them to live separately and then cohesively bring them together. And I like Pug, bro.
I love Pug.
And look,
Pug is my guy.
I still don't trust him.
Joe knows how much I have a love-hate relationship with him after Arrow. But the more the show goes on, I'm liking him more. And this is my favorite episode with him by far.
I mean, it should be. It should be, bro. Like, listen,
Man got them
I like the way he talks. I like. Hey, listen, you want to try to do me a favor though? Like, he's just so cool.
No,
with it.
that
Like,
one was smooth. I need an extra person.
I need an extra person staying in line
You
with me.
go buy 2 pairs of shoes?
I'm trying to get them Iron Man 3s,
Hey,
bro.
listen, I felt him when I showed the
I know you did.
Hey, I
think every collective period did.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
we all knew what his answer was going to be.
straight up. Yeah. Hey, listen.
My man.
It's so, like, I think that, like, establishing him as, like, that guy, as the person, like, oh yeah, I got the whole, especially like the shot at the end, the drawing of them with all of the superhero joints in the background, bruh.
I lost it. Just, you know, you quickly started looking through the wall of things he had, and I'm like, hold up, wait, you got some Deadpools back there, my dude.
Got some Deadpool, got some Cyclops joints.
I was like, hold up.
Yeah.
I was like, this is how we make him canon. My man just has all their shoes.
Straight up. They in there. Fresh Wolverines in the joint. Like, he got joints. Yeah, I like it. And it's like, all right, well, you know the deal. I'll do you a favor, but you gotta do me a favor plus interest. All right, what you got? You know what I'm saying? Excellent. Shorty need a new wardrobe, bro. We can't. I got to fix this. Like, I can't, bro. Them suits are swallowing her.
Fix that back then. That is an issue that she got on.
The camera went over to her while she just sit
Straight up.
Straight
up.
That's looking terrible.
Like, good God. And my man Pug is just like, yeah. Fuck. He kind of fly, bro. Like, he got the nice, fresh, clean cut, tailored joints looking. You know what I'm saying? Jennifer Walters be looking raggedy in that joint.
It's a bad suit.
Like raggedy, bruh. She looked like she wearing one of Shaq's suits from like 91, bro. Like one of his old college.
His draft suit.
Hey, it's like, yeah.
That's probably what. That'd be a dope right in.
Ugly,
got
bruh.
the suit off.
So yeah, so we have this established moment of like Pug knows people. I got a guy. You know the guy. You know what I'm saying? Word is. Hey, this Froyo joint is in front. Man, the big superhero uniform. And they walk in that joint like, yeah, we here to see superhero joints.
Oh.
Hey dog, we sell Froyo, bro. Nah, dog. I don't know what you talking about.
Yeah, when she tried to speak Chinese to dude.
Oh my God.
No, racist, bro.
I was like, that was not good. Like, that was not
I was like,
good.
oh, that was so racist.
So racist.
That was a bad assumption.
Hey, she felt so terrible after that.
After that, the fail.
And should have, rightfully so. You know, they end up in the back of the joint. My man's like, all right, look back here. Hey, this dude weird, bro.
You know, I need him.
Avengers.
And
Oh, you know they about to be weird.
Make
The
like the
Avengers and the
like the joint I got on
Avengers.
right now.
I
Make this
need
joint Avengers.
I need it.
Oh,
And them jokes was terrible, you know.
Oh, they were.
they had to zoom in. I was like, oh no, that ain't right.
And here's the problem I have with this. Why is that a secret? Why is that
No.
joint? Why are those terrible fake joints that clearly they can't sue you for? Like, why are
Right.
those joints tucked in the back of the joint? Like,
know.
it's just kind of dumb, but okay.
You know what? Maybe the Avengers are like a multiverse version of the Avengers somewhere. Maybe this dude didn't see it somehow. It's like, you know what? Let
I'm
me
gonna get on this before it becomes a thing.
Maybe.
When they start spilling over here into this into this universe, I'm already ahead of the game.
That's bad. It's terrible. When my man makes them buy, like, you finna buy all this. I got a guy.
You gotta buy from this merch.
You getting this right here.
Take the shirt, but you gotta get the matching hat too.
They bought all that terrible stuff and then wore it.
Party with it too.
Go to the real thing, bro. Oh, they did party. Oh, they was getting down. Oh, we about to get in. Meanwhile, right, you know, Jen is, you know, they have their first meeting in court, Titania, and it's not really looking good, right? Like, this is what it is. It's legal, shorty. Like, I got the name. You know what I'm saying? Like, I went, I did the paperwork, I got the name. And for real, the products, bruh.
Oh, one of them jokes was like, one was like super serum. I was like, are we trying to allude to like the super soldier serum out here right now? What's going on here?
Booty lift.
Hey, that was funny at the end too when they did the animated the art jokes and the guy that runs the law firm was actually using that joke.
Using the booty lift joint?
With a booty lift joint.
Terrible, Slim.
Oh.
All right, so let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about Titania. Where are we on Titania?
Titania trash.
I'm not. It seems like they're just going to use her as the comic relief. I guess maybe she's not going to really become a threat. Obviously, this is just the beginning stage, so maybe she's going to have it out after she loses the She-Hulk name. So maybe this is what
her. This isn't over.
Yeah, this is what triggers it. So right now, I'm lukewarm. I'm lukewarm on her right now.
Is there a slim possibility that Titania ends up on the Thunderbolts?
No,
I don't think so. Maybe.
Why?
At least
Because you
not
haven't seen her fight.
Maybe that, but maybe not the first iteration. Maybe as let's grand assumption, Thunderbolts 2 happens. I see maybe she's like an expansion that they add on, like they contract her or whatnot.
Everybody just made Titania in the DLC, bro. Like, she's an expansion that they add on, dog.
Yeah, she's extra content.
She's downloadable content, bro.
She's extra content. But I don't see her being on the current run that they show. I don't see her with them.
Anything could change, but as of right now, what we're seeing of her, no. But who knows what can happen by the end of the show and whatnot. So jury's still on that, but as of right now, I'm going no.
Okay, so Abomination has been a member of the Thunderbolt.
Mm-hmm.
We did discuss the possibility of that being a thing, possibly by the end of this show, with Allegra showing up and being like, "So So here's the deal. I think that the cast that they showed so far, Disney's really good, Marvel's really good about not giving you all the information. I think that there is a lot of space in that lineup of characters, and those all are cutouts that they move and can put anywhere.
Oh yeah.
I think there's space for at least 2 more members. At least 2. When you look at the way that lineup is set, one facing it out on the far right, next to Taskmaster, and possibly somebody giant in the back.
Yeah, perfect.
Abomination.
I think it's Abomination.
Or it could be a Red Hulk. There is
Red Hulk would
a Red She-Hulk.
Ooh, now I didn't know. Now that I didn't know.
We talked about Red She-Hulk earlier. We talked about possibilities.
Did we?
I
No,
think we mentioned.
we didn't
I
talk
think
about
one of
Red.
us brought it up earlier.
We didn't talk about Red.
I didn't. But
I'm pretty sure we did. But I have to go back and look.
So I know it's a thing. I'm gonna look it up right now. I need to see who it is because I don't know who it is. And I would like to. Let's see here. Nonetheless,
Betty Ross.
Betty.
Oh, that'll be.
Now again, her father, real world actor William Hurt, passed away. Don't know how they'll handle Thunderbolt Ross as a character moving forward. But again, that's his name. Thunderbolt Ross is his name. Thunderbolts are technically named after him as a character. So it obviously remains to be seen how they end up being the group called the Thunderbolts, or where that comes from.
Maybe they'll have him passed away in the MCU
I was
somehow.
It's just a memorial type thing.
Yeah, exactly. They passed the
that
title to
actually
them because he worked on the project for so long and yada yada yada.
And then at that point, then who did they make the Red Hulk? There's just no way that there's not some form of Red Hulk. Maybe it ends up being Red She-Hulk. Maybe his daughter.
That's what I'm saying. With Hulk being gone and Hulk not really being a main character for the Avengers anymore within the MCU, with She-Hulk being that person, we might bypass the Red Hulk altogether. Could also be that they say Thunderbolt Ross was experimenting with it, blah blah blah, would turn into the Red Hulk, and maybe it killed him.
That could be a good one,
right? And we got like we saw the Wrecking Crew trying to stick her with needles and steal her blood. So
we do. And Titania is, an established enemy for She-Hulk. So more than just an internet threat, if you will. And if in some way the Thunderbolts is tied again, if we look at the lineup of the Thunderbolts and who's there, a good portion of them are in fact people who are members of the We Want to Make Super Soldiers. And when they retconned the Weapon X program, the Weapon Plus program, knowing that Wolverine was Weapon X or the 10th weapon, then that Deadpool is in fact Weapon 11, right? But that throughout history, after Captain America died, they continued to try to replicate the super soldier serum, and that in some manner, what happened to Bruce Banner is also supposed to be part of that. We have all these other experiments at replicating the super soldier serum and it not working, but working, right? So US Agent is in that line, right? And you have Winter Soldier, who is also in that line. You have Red Guardian, who is the Soviet version of Captain America, who is also in that line, right? So you have this establishment of super soldiers or possibly people who are created to try to defeat super soldiers, right? Red Guardian is tied to Black Widow, to that program. You have Taskmaster, who can copy anybody's abilities, or at least is supposed to be able to do that. And then you have Allegra, who is quote unquote the mastermind behind these moving pieces. But clearly somebody has given her clearance.
Yeah.
Clearly, she is working for someone to do this all and put it together. And my guess has been from the very beginning that Thunderbolt Ross is one of those people. And so the possibility that right now, for me, Titania is sort of a throwaway mention, I think could be more. Having someone like Ghost, who is more or less a throwaway character from Ant-Man, be on this team, to me means Titania could end up being.
There's one.
Because she's got a reason. If there's anybody who Allegra could now go to, based on what we've seen so far, and be like, here's the deal. You've got super strength and blah, blah, blah. This is what we need. This is what we're doing. This is what we're going after. I don't think Titania would take a lot of convincing. I just don't. Now, everybody on the team of the Thunderbolts, with the exception of U.S. Agent, he's the only one I would say is technically a bad guy. We don't have Abomination, quote unquote, set up. But even for him, he is a lot like U.S. Agent in that he is a government sanctioned person who received the super soldier serum in order to stop a perceived threat or to represent the country. U.S. Agent was Captain America. Took the serum, wasn't supposed to, but took You understand what I'm saying? To live up to it. Yeah, Blonsky, who was given the serum in order to stop the threat, which was the Hulk, right? Taskmaster is the daughter of someone who was doing all kinds of crazy and terrible things, but she's a victim. Ghost is a victim of something that happened, that happened to her parents, and they're trying to save her life. She wasn't ever necessarily evil or a bad guy. Winter Soldier has done some terrible, terrible things, but not of his own mind. Right?
Yeah, it was brainwashed. Yeah.
Right? So you have all these characters, and that's kind of what makes them this weird kind of a ragtag group, but really could be a replacement for the Avengers in the meantime until an actual young Avengers is established.
And if you think about it, it's no different than when the Avengers themselves were first formed. Like, they were all kind of rough around the edges. They weren't like bad guys or anything like that. But they were superpowered individuals, especially like take a Thor, cocky attitude, just because he's the god of thunder and he doesn't necessarily need to answer to what any of them have for. The only reason he's there is because Loki is there. If Loki wasn't there, Thor probably would have been like, "Oh, that's y'all problem. I'm going back down." And they're kind of in that. The Thunderbolts are kind of in that same boat as well too. Like, how Black Widow now and Bucky are going to be on the same team after she was originally supposed to go and she knows it was him. Like, it's kind of his fault, and she was going to go. Well, Hawkeye, I should say. But there's a part of me that doesn't. Yeah. There's a part of me that. No, never mind. Train of thought. That train was going the wrong way.
I think it's interesting that they put her front and center.
Yeah.
In the image. Because the question really is who's going to lead the team.
Yep. U.S. Agent's going to think it should be him.
It ain't.
Right. And Bucky
ain't going to want it. He going to be like, listen.
Either it's going to be me, it ain't going to be him.
Yeah.
Bucky's definitely flat out. It will not be him. I would put a
I also think it's important to remember that, when Yelena is given the job to go after Hawkeye, it's not the first mission that she's received from Allegra. So these things have been in the works again for a while. And again, I think that there's a possibility that Titania ends up being a threat later on, right? That could come in. Right now, she's a clown. It doesn't mean she's not a threat, though. This show has a lot of comedy in it.
I can see her losing her sponsorship deals and all that kind of stuff. I can see her doing like that, and that be her reason for doing the Thunderbolts. Like by the end of the show, something happens, she loses all her branding deals, all that kind of stuff. Her social media following goes in the tank because of a battle between her and She-Hulk, who knows, or whatever. And she gets approached and like, yes, sign me up. I wasn't paid that. I can see it happening, something like that.
I mean, of all of what we've seen in She-Hulk so far, you know, she's really the only one. Like, we haven't seen them fight. We saw her get hit once. She shook it off, but like, we haven't really seen her get into a real fight. That has to happen before this show is over, and they haven't established anybody else that I think can show up in the next 4 episodes, which is all that's left, to be a significant enough threat, unless, bearing the fact that we see Daredevil suit in this joint and we know that he's going to be in one of these episodes upcoming, somehow she runs into Luke Cage. Who could give her some go. But that's not likely to happen. So, you know, look, her having to resort to finding a way to show that she had used the name as her personal name prior to Titania taking the name or filing for the name. Them saying, look, she didn't even want the name until I became a thing. She didn't even think of it. It wasn't even a name until somebody gave it to me. Them using evidence of her saying, like, I don't care about it. I'll never use it. Like, I ain't never, like, I'm not going, that ain't who I am. I'm not even responding to that. Right? But again, to then turning around and like creating an entire profile based on it and using it.
I like how in the courtroom, as soon as they played that clip with her walking out the court, I was like, yeah, I want nothing to do with that, yada yada. Homegirl had one ready. Well, we got this. She was ready for it. I was like, gotcha.
She was on it.
She was on
it. Lawyers got to be prepared.
That was cool.
Submit this into evidence.
Yeah. So, you know, look, her having to deal with the last, I don't know, let's say we don't know exactly how long this persists over a number of weeks or whatever that all this is happening, but I assume it's a number of weeks, that it's not just, you know, and you know, her having to be like, all right, there's all these guys I went on dates with, and they went on dates with She-Hulk. That's what they knew. Now, you have that one dude, the real kind of crazy dude that she went on a date with, that was like, so your skin's impenetrable, huh? So you was asking all these questions. We was like, something's up with Slim. And then for him to turn out to be a client of BLK and H is like, okay, who is Slim? What is he up to?
Yeah, that's probably
how is this family tied to the wrecking?
Could have been
for sure, this is coming back around. There's no two ways about it. Now, I know that this dude is like a combination of like 2 other characters or whatever in the comic books. Like, he's not like he is a character in the comics. They combine, so for the guy that does that creates the superhero outfits, he's a combination of 2 other characters in the comics that create outfits. So, whatever. This dude is like some version of a threat that we just can't really
don't have it just yet.
I think that plays out clearly before the end of this. We know that the Thinker is now going to be reestablished and is coming back. That remains to be seen how that plays out and whether or not that ends up being a threat for her. I would think it's more of a threat for her than it is for Bruce. Bruce is gone.
She's about to pick up that slack.
She'll have to. So, we'll see. I kind of felt for Jennifer in, having my man up there on the stand and being like, I really felt something with She-Hulk. Like, I really liked her, whatever. And then being like, I don't know, Jennifer was just like, explain. And Mallory, I
Yeah.
feel like drew some joy out of being like, so like, if the profile had been Jennifer Walters, this has been who you went on the date with, would you have done it? And he was like,
Nah.
And you know what I mean? Which I think is an interesting take again on the character, because we've talked about her accepting the character and that them being one and the same, being the same person. But I think that this kind of establishes that they're not necessarily the same person. Even though she thinks the same way and can act the same way, that they're not exactly the same. In a, you know what I mean, in a weird way, that even though like with Bruce it's a little more obvious that they're two different personalities that are at war with one another inside of the same body, that though she seems to have this control over her emotions and her anger in a way that Bruce didn't, that this still does in a way establish her as still having two different versions of herself. That for him, it's a very angry, very upset individual. And for her, it's not. For her, it's the difference between who Jennifer Walter is and what her skills and abilities are as a person. It is a difference in what her self-esteem is like in her head versus what her self-esteem is like, you know what I mean, when she looks in the mirror as Jennifer Walters. That there are two different versions of her living in the same body. And though they're not necessarily vying for the same space, in a way they are. And I feel like there's a piece of this that is talking about her being comfortable with finding her comfort with not just knowing she's a good lawyer and that she really worked for, but finding all the rest of it, right? Finding confidence in who she is, what she looks like, how she walks and talks and acts as Jennifer, versus the confidence that she's given when she walks around and talks as She-Hulk. And I feel like there was a time, like had this come out in like the 90s or something like that, or like the early 2000s when X-Men was a big thing, it would have been about she's ugly because she's green, or she, whatever. Which they do say a little bit when my man tries to stab her with the needle.
Yeah, ugly green skin.
Ugly green skin of hers, right? Clearly, there are people like, nah, that green skin.
That green skin.
About it, you know what I mean?
Remember the one kid? It was like, I smashed.
All right, you know what I'm saying? So, I do think it's like super interesting, in terms of a direction that they're going with her and with the character, and that this still does establish that there's two different versions of the same person.
Another thing she's gonna have to deal with is just the fact that people find them different, even though they're like how she sees, like you say, how she sees herself as like She-Hulk is just a thing that I can turn into, but it's really just me, and she's fighting and struggling with that. And also she has to deal with the fact that people see them as two completely different people, even though she's constantly fighting in her stuff. That no, it's still me. It's just Jen. I can just turn to a Hulk now. Like
taller and green.
Just another thing that she has to fight with and deal with and overcome throughout this, by the end of the show, hopefully she can.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me a lot of like conversations we've had with people when we do like being comfortable being a geek panels or talking to cosplayers who just like feel different when they're in cosplay and they're among quote unquote their people, right? When they're amongst us and we're with our people, how different we feel, how accepted we can feel. And I think this is a transition for her, something that she has to deal with. And I think that there may be a battle of like whether or not she should just always walk around as She-Hulk is, walking around as Jen. Even something as simple as the Wrecking Crew saying to her, like, if you're gonna walk around flaunting that power of yours, like, when did I flaunt? When did I ever walk around flaunting?
I am walking in the house.
But again, sometimes authority or confidence is just seen as a perceived threat as you flaunting it around. So and so think. They think they so blah blah blah. When you really just being
just chilling, just being yourself,
walking around. There are people who will take that or perceive that as you think you're better, or you think you whatever. That's
like, what did I do? I just walked down the street.
right. I mean, even in that moment, she was just walking around as humble Jen in a giant suit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but when you have, how they say, like, when there's power, someone will always show up to test that power, to test that theory, right? So regardless of what it is, if you're really good at something, I don't care if you're an artist and you draw, or if you're a singer and you got crazy notes, like, the fact that you can do it, somebody will show up, like, just to challenge it, just because. So that's the thing that I think she'll have to deal with. I do find that super interesting. Let's talk about her getting fitted for her outfit. Them lying, like, oh no, she an Avenger.
No, they was selling. It was selling it. She hasn't been announced.
They haven't announced it yet. Like, the way still the deal, the ink is around the deal, and
yeah. I think this dude Jacobson, Luke Jacobson was like I think Slim killed it. Like, I just think Slim was spot on. Not worth my time.
No, leave. He knows his worth. Right there, jokes. He knows his work. It's like, I make these superhero suits. The only thing that was missing was probably two things. Like, one was Samuel L. Jackson. Where's my super suit? Coming through there.
I mean, for him being like,
no capes.
You don't fight. What am I? I don't. All my suits are built to, Nah, I'm a lawyer. Like, again, her just being like, nah, I'm just a lawyer though. Like, this is what I lawyer.
He was so disgusted.
I law is what I do.
Just working a regular ass job. Like, no.
Why would I leave, dog? Like, why are you here? Right? But having to show that it was like that, like the idea of, can you do this? Right? Like, oh, you really gonna try to push me and see what I can do? Like, Sean, she shrinks down and that giant suit, and my man's gears immediately start turning like, oh, you gonna challenge me though? You know what I'm saying? Okay, got it. So now I'm like, I really want. Obviously, my man gave her this spandex joint, the purple and white.
Yeah,
I'm ready for it.
That was definitely the second one he handed.
That was the second. Got something special here.
For sure. But I want to see the regular suits. Like, I just want to see.
I do. Yeah. We gotta wait till next episode.
Yeah, like, let's get it. Like, I need the next episode to open with her coming out of the closet joint, like coming out of the fitting room, like,
or even coming out of the elevator, walking into the office with the brand new suit on, looking confident.
And everybody in the
office. Everybody about to break their neck.
Yep.
My man Pug being like, hey, we did it, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
she's gonna walk in the big boss's office.
Because I know my man need to be on, like, the front lines when she get her own shoe. Slim, I'm trying to be there. Like, I get them She-Hulk ones, bro. I'm in there. I need that.
That need to be after credit.
What? Straight up, bro. Like, that needs to happen. But of course, we get the little stinger. Now, I was very surprised. We're 5 episodes in, and this joint has no after credits.
Yeah.
I was blown. I got used to it, so I was blown at that.
Really?
I was weird about that.
I fast forwarded all the way to the end. Like, there's nothing here. I looked online. Like, did I just?
Nope.
Am I missing
I knew it wasn't
here?
because the thing is, when you're watching on Disney Plus, it pops up with the borders around it, so you knew it was like, oh, there's nothing.
As soon as the music changed, I was like, oh, this is a wrap. Oh, they really just didn't. And I guess they could have taken that one spot where he's like, does confidentiality mean nothing to you? And he takes the hat box and goes to move it, and you see that, like, they could have cut that. Like,
I almost feel like that was originally there.
I feel like that's what they were supposed to do, and they didn't.
But now I feel like we're not going to get any more after credit scenes now until the very last episode. I feel like for whatever reason, because that was just random. Like,
Well, I know that what they did was they got me now, because now I'm gonna watch the credits in every joint. I mean, I might fast forward to them, but I'm gonna go through the credits in every joint.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just how else do you? I do find that really interesting. That we're, I guess, at the halfway point, right? We're dead middle.
Yeah.
5 of 9 episodes, and first 4 we have an after credit. In this joint, we have nothing. Even when the after credit really isn't a thing, like it's just her helping her father move stuff around the house or whatever, lifting on it. It doesn't really do anything.
Cool, fun stuff to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think this episode is cool. I mean, I like the episode again. I'm a 7 or 8. It's slow, but there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think there could be some very important things hidden within the episode.
Of course.
That aren't necessarily like not a lot of Easter eggs or anything like that. I just think it's kind of a fun episode that's happening. I still need some help, jokes, with you feeling like it's the best episode you've seen so far.
I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. Comedy for me was good. Like, even though it didn't have
harder at this joint than anything else.
I don't know. I just thought this one was. I just thought it was smooth.
What do you think the chances are? And this is, again, what's my job though?
Poke them holes.
This episode being what it is, what are the chances that there's an episode that's better than this episode?
I still think it would be. The one that it would be, I would hope.
Nah, I'm not asking you, Sin.
He's asking me.
Yeah. My apologies.
And I'm saying that because, and if you agree, like if you're saying, Sin, that you think that there's an episode in the next 4 episodes that is highly likely to be a 10 out of 10.
I'm not going so far as a 10 out of 10.
But it has to be if it's better than this joint joke. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm gearing that question towards joke.
I got you.
Because
now.
I'm just testing my man's scales. I'm just trying to see where we are. What is the likelihood that there's going to be an episode that's better than this episode for you, Joe?
I think there'll be one. My hope is it would be the introduction with Matt Murdock / Daredevil. I feel like that episode, whether it turns out maybe they're going to wrap the show with that. Like at this point, like we've seen the helmet and everything. Something just like you said, maybe it's going to be Titania doing something someplace else, and maybe he's got it. Maybe he knows that she's She-Hulk. Well, obviously he knows she's She-Hulk.
Well, no, I think we asked the question in the last episode, like, why would she be doing anything with Matt Murdock? He clearly lives in New York. She's clearly in LA. Well, now we know. The person who's making his suit makes the suits there. So if he's got to come pick it up, if they're not shipping it to him or whatever,
you can't let that get lost in the mail.
Right?
Can't let that get lost.
So he's coming to get it.
There's now a reason for him to be there, which is to show up to pick this up. Which means when he comes to pick this up, something is clearly going to go awry, or he's like, I gotta do a test run.
I was about to say, they're just going to test.
You know what I'm saying, or something to make sure that it works the way I need it to before I go all the way back to New York. So now we have an established reason for him to be there, because clearly last episode we didn't know. One, we didn't know how she was going to get her uniform, which we did talk about, like how she's going to end up with her uniform, and we didn't know how he would end up working with her or why he would even be in that area. We clearly said, like, can't be technically law related. Like, he doesn't have a license to practice law in LA. She doesn't have a license to practice law in New York. So that shouldn't be it. However, now we have our end. Luke Jacobson, the creator of fabrics and clothing for superheroes. I don't know how you get in that business. Doesn't really matter.
I want to know who else's suits he's made. Outside of Tony Stark is the only one that probably he didn't make. But I'm kind of eager to know that maybe who else's suits he put together.
I think the important thing to know is that if he is doing this and he has established a business doing it, that there are a lot more people out there that have uniforms and are doing things than you know. People we have not been introduced to. That is very important to me. That's one of the things that I do find super important. And again, establishment. Like I said, there's a lot going on in this episode, but I think that this particular character is a linchpin. This is a character who has to be creating outfits for other people, for people who are not super well known, who maybe are doing things on a neighborhood level, right? We know where Shang-Chi got his outfit from. We know where Iron Man got his outfit from. We know where Spider-Man got his outfits from. Like, he made them joints, or Tony made them joints.
He looks like he could have made like maybe first gen Fantastic Four suits with the way that he's thinking about, you know, how can I make, like how Jennifer grows and shrinks back down, like he's got to.
Well, it means that he could be the person who does make the outfit for a Mr. Fantastic, or does make an outfit that can go invisible, right? Or can deal with the heat that comes from, right? This character is a character who did make outfits. Again, this is a combination of two other characters within the comics that made outfits for people, but one of which is, like, one of the big stories is him making panties for Ben Grimm, right? like, you know, isn't that what they wear in wrestling? Jokes and in panties?
No, they're just
what they call them? What they call
underwear?
They're just underwear. They're just shorts. They just call them shorts.
I don't believe that's the actual thing, sir.
No, they just call them. They just call them shorts or anything. That's at least, yeah.
They're not shorts.
Just short.
They just call shorts. So yeah, I mean, again, this is an established character, but again, I think it just, if you are someone who is evolving abilities and evolving powers, if something is happening, if an X gene is now beginning to rear its head or whatever, and somebody has become established, clearly you have to have some money to pay this man.
Oh yeah.
Man's not doing what he's doing for free. Right?
Probably not
cheap. But it also means that he could be creating joints for villains.
Yeah.
Could be doing stuff for people like Titania. Could be doing work for somebody like Allegra. For people like the Thunderbolts. So this is, I think, a linchpin. Somebody who is like, all right, it's a lot of clothes. My man's making a lot of gear. If you look at what was going on in that room, Slim is making a lot of gear.
Oh yeah,
he's got a team.
And has a team.
They gotta be trustworthy.
Somebody's not, I'm sure. But again, more importantly, you know, we know where Thor gets his outfit from. He can make that joint. It's made out of lightning, I guess. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it appears, he makes a decision. Oh wait, her outfit look better than mine. I'm about to change my joint. Like,
lightning thread.
That's you know, that's what I do. We know where Black Panther suit comes from. We know who makes that. We know that Shuri is behind it. So like, everybody who has something like that, like, we have an understanding and knowledge of where that
came from.
The fact that this is an established person now, and that this person has been working, that they have a background. I got a guy. How do you have a guy? Because this guy has clearly been making it. Like, we know where Ant-Man's suit came from. So who is this Bama making suits for?
Man, just for the X-Men. Right, man, for the X-Men.
Just the random other supers and stuff like that out there we haven't come across yet.
Again, keep in mind, we have a superhuman law division, which means there's a lot of things going on that we haven't heard, that we haven't seen. This is...
Hey, I'm good with, like, how we, like, the mutant thing. If this is how we introduce mutant, like, we just do these little small tidbits. Yeah, I made suits for these super powered mutations. Well, you can say mutants now. So no, for these mutant guys or whatnot ever. And that's just, hey, there's another X-Men reference. They could keep doing that and I would be fine. We know the mutants exist. They're in the universe and we still never have to actually put the
I have a contract with a prestigious school, but, you know, I can't. You know,
I can't disclose.
Yeah, exactly.
Just has an X in the name.
That's all.
Just know.
I mean, trust me when I say I tried to look in the background of my man's shop just to see if I saw anything that even look remotely like something that could.
Stop this on at least
twice. If you can pause the joint and look at all the shoes, again, think about this for a second. In that drawing, there's all these shoes. Like, oh, I got quite the collection. Collection of what? These the Iron Man 3s? It's 2 other sets? Do we got colorwares of these joints too? Like,
who knows?
Who's doing this? Is this Nike? Which one of these companies are doing?
Joints on your shelf, bro? Bishop joints on your shelf, bruh.
No.
Storm joints on your shelf. Deadpool joints on your shelf. Clearly,
We've seen these
things
guys.
happening that ain't getting shows right now. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, there's stuff going on. So, you know, I'm with it. And you know what I mean? Like, I could see there being some Gamora 2020. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. Yeah. So, I think Slim could be a linchpin. Like, he could just be the thing that is like, oh, yeah, well, clearly, these people are doing this and they got outfits because there's this guy that makes the outfits, you know, whatever. So I do think there's some things that are happening in this that are important or could be very important going forward. With that said, is everybody still in the same place as far as this episode is concerned?
I'm still good.
I'm still at 8. Yeah.
Those is at a 9. Saying you're at an 8.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm at a 7 or an 8. I'm undecided.
Okay.
I think it could come up to an 8 depending on how the rest of it, like how it pans out.
In the end of it, put the pieces together.
I have a feeling, Jokes, that yours is going to come down. I don't
We'll
think
see.
you're going to be able to maintain this episode as a 9. That's what I think.
Okay.
That's what I think. But if we come across something that you deem in the next 4 weeks as a perfect episode, as a masterpiece episode, like it don't get no better than this, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked. Now, could you find another 9?
Probably more likely to find it.
Maybe. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if you find another 9, the moment you say you have a 9, I'm gonna start calling this entire episode into question. I'm gonna be throwing some mallory ass questions at you, like, hey, bro, on some GHLK, get the gavel out, son. It's going down. We're going to court right now, straight up. I'm just telling you. But again, I appreciate your opinion. Like, if you love the episode that much, that's cool. You know what I mean? And I hope you giggle till your tummy hurt. That had to be what happened. There's no way this joint is a 9 unless your tummy hurt from giggling. And that's a fact.
Did you giggle,
Your tummy
Joe?
hurt?
Did
Tummy hurt?
I'm gonna have to watch it again. I don't remember my tummy.
Nah.
Hey, did you pee yourself just a little bit?
No.
You're not a 9, dog. But okay. Just get ready. You got 4 episodes to make it right.
I got 4. That's enough.
The gavel be right here. The second you say,
let that gavel go. No quick.
Hey, this is 9. Bang, bang, bang.
I'm like, oh, veto.
Court is in session. No, this is court is in
Let's
session.
go. Let's go. Facts on facts. All right, listen, I greatly appreciate everybody for tuning in, listening, watching, and so forth. If you're doing that already, then at least you know how to find this. But if you're looking for all the rest of the content that we do, the easiest way to do that is just search Loading Snacks on Google or Bing it or go to Facebook and type it in. We have a Beacons page. The easiest way to find us is Google us. Follow us everywhere. We greatly appreciate it. With that, we're out. We'll be back next week with another episode of Spoiler Boys for She-Hulk. This has been She-Hulk episode 5. We're out. Toodles and loose.
Loading Snacks.